there is nothing that can ever replace the local knowledge that community members have. ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude, none of these AI tools are ever going to replace the local knowledge, the local employers, the local workforce, and just the local pride in what a community can deliver.
Recorded live from the heart of the Bakken, it's the Williston Works Podcast.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Williston Works Podcast, brought to you by the City of Williston. I'm your host, Anna Nelson, Executive Director of Williston Economic Development. Now, whether you are tuning in for the first time or you're a longtime listener, we are here to bring you the conversations with entrepreneurs, small business owners, and community leaders shaping Williston's future. Now, we're doing things a little differently for this episode, but I'm so excited. So we are recording from Maryland, actually, during the SelectUSA Investment Summit, where leaders from around the world come together to talk about business growth, investment, and economic opportunity. Now, I've had the chance to work with the North Dakota Department of Commerce to connect with professionals from across the globe to showcase what makes regions like ours competitive on a national and global stage. So today we're sitting down with several guests, so we get to see a few different perspectives on development, investment, and what communities need to be thinking about right now. So first, I'm so pleased to introduce to you my first guest, Joe Wiegand. He is known for bringing Theodore Roosevelt to life and for his deep connection to North Dakota's leadership legacy. So welcome to the podcast, Mr. President.
Thank you kindly, Anna. A delight to be with you and the viewers and listeners of Williston Works Podcast. I'm delighted to be here with you representing North Dakota. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Well, wonderful. We're so excited to have you here. You've been so great telling the story of North Dakota to everybody who's coming to the booth, everybody who wants to learn more about what we have to offer. So your work, though, is so fascinating. So can you tell us a little bit more about you and about your time as the 26th President of the United States?
Anna, thank you so very much. The origin story of my second career as a Theodore Roosevelt Reprisor, bringing his life story to audiences throughout the country and throughout the world, has been a great adventure, and books change people's lives. The book that changed my life was The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt by Edmund Morris, a Pulitzer Prize winner. The adventure continued for decades and has led to Medora, North Dakota, where we're the gateway to Theodore Roosevelt National Park, the home now of Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, with a grand opening on July 4th. The whole state of North Dakota is just a wonderful place, and it's a joy and a pleasure to represent the state throughout the country.
Well, we're so grateful that you do, and so grateful just for the joy and the passion that you bring, and I think that really is indicative of our great president. So, you know, you're such a wealth of knowledge and a purveyor of Teddy's story. So why do you think his message still resonates today, especially in conversations around leadership and growth?
You mentioned the word joy, Anna. Theodore Roosevelt spoke of his time in the Badlands and his later life as the glory of work and the joy of living. We know North Dakotans are hardworking, honest people who a handshake is your bond. You're raising your children and building your churches and supporting youth sports and organizations. But it's the work that makes all of that possible, whether it's the work in the Bakken oil fields or the ranches of Western North Dakota, the farms and ag tech and high tech and academia of the Red River Valley of the North. It's rich and fertile ground, and the people are amazing. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Marv Kaiser, one of the men who helped to build modern Williston and supported the effort that we do in Medora to bring history to life, to keep a legacy alive. He was pivotal in Fort Union being renovated, reestablished, and affiliated with the National Park Service. Of course, we've got a wonderful relationship with the Park Service and the Department of the Interior. Marv Kaiser helped to support museums in Prescott, Arizona, where 200 Rough Riders mustered in, and in Cody, Wyoming, for the Buffalo Bill Museum there. All of us in Williston and throughout North Dakota wish to remember Marv Kaiser in the month following his passing. But it's that sort of passionate example, the example of Harold Schaefer and Gold Seal Corporation and building modern Medora. the story of countless good citizens who served the country, served the state, and it's my pleasure and honor to do so as Theodore Roosevelt.
And you do it so awfully well. When I think about the story of Teddy Roosevelt and his journey to North Dakota, I think about him coming here to heal, and him saying that he wouldn't have been the man that he was without his time in North Dakota. So when you think about North Dakota and about communities like ours in Williston, you touched on it a little bit with Mr. Kaiser, but how do those Roosevelt values show up in how people approach challenge and opportunity?
Well, you mentioned the hardship, the devastation that Theodore Roosevelt suffered prior to returning to the Badlands in 1884. When he was a young man at Harvard, when he was just 19, his father, the man for whom he was named, he passed of stomach cancer, and Theodore Roosevelt went on 5 long trips to the Northwoods of Maine. And the 2 hardy woodsmen that he met there would become his ranch hands at his Elkhorn Ranch along the Little Missouri River, a place that we call the cradle of conservation. And when Theodore Roosevelt returned after his bison hunt in 1883, he purchased cattle. And before he returned in the summer of 1884, his wife and mother died on the same day of 2 different diseases under the same roof and in turn in his arms. He came to the Badlands, and through the hard work of ranching, he healed. They say there's nothing so good for the inside of a man or a woman as the outside of a horse. He hunted Montana and Idaho and Wyoming. He wrote, and he studied his Bible, and he recuperated, would remarry and get back into politics in New York, and of course, proved himself Mount Rushmore worthy, from the Panama Canal to the Great White Fleet, to trust busting and more. Theodore Roosevelt is admirable. And when he said, "I would have never been president but for my experiences in North Dakota," we here invite the world and throughout the year, all throughout the country, to come to Medora, North Dakota, and to North Dakota and Williston and Fort Union. Western North Dakota is tremendous. Of course, the eastern portion of our state is the gateway for many coming from the east and the Midwest. Come see the land of which Theodore Roosevelt said it was there that the romance of his life began.
Just after the light had gone out of his life on that fateful Valentine's Day when he lost the loves of his life. But it's so encouraging to hear that he was able to bring that light back in North Dakota. And I'm a little scared that it's going to be very heartbreaking, but I'm very excited to see the exhibit of that journey in that new Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library that you mentioned that's opening the 4th of July. So it's going to be a large celebration. You can come meet Joe in person. But we're just so thrilled to have this connection and to have you be able to tell this story for us.
Anna, if I may, I'm touched by your hesitancy, right? You know that that's going to be part of the display in the museum. And part of what we've done for years is to share that story in person through live theater. And I've been able to do so as an ambassador for Medora, North Dakota, in schoolrooms and schools throughout the country. And even our young people have suffered hardship and tragedy. So when they learn that Theodore Roosevelt got knocked down and got back up again, when they learn that this man that lived the strenuous life was a weak and sickly asthmatic boy, they too receive encouragement. And again, I take with great earnestness the opportunity to bring to life this man who also was thought of as just a little boy. Mrs. Roosevelt said they didn't rear 6 children at the White House, they reared 7. And Teddy was her worstest and most terrible child. So it's also the story of how the teddy bear got its name. There's both joyful passion and then these earnest stories that I think make him very human.
They do. Very relatable and somebody that we can look up to as well. So thank you so much for joining us. We're just so pleased to have you here, and thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast as well. We really appreciate it.
An honor and a pleasure, and bully for Williston.
Exactly. Bully. We were so excited to have our president join us, and now I am so pleased to introduce to you Margaret Rose. She is the Director of Sales and Marketing with Conway Data. Now, for context, I think we've shared that we were so proud to be named by Conway as the top micropolitan city for 2025 back in March. So, Margaret, thank you for that, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here.
So, Margaret, can you share for our listeners just a little bit about your background and then also the perspective that your work at Conway gives you on economic development across the country?
Yes, absolutely. So I have been with Conway Data, the publisher of Site Selection Magazine, for almost 11 years now. My background is in basically international marketing, and I'm actually about one class shy right now of my MBA with a concentration in economic development. So I meet with economic development directors on a state, regional, and local level, and also with investment promotional agencies in Central and South America. And I'm able to sit and hear what's really going on in their communities, their regions, their states, their countries, the main industries that they're trying to recruit, the challenges that they're having, the successes and victories that they've had, like the victories that Williston just had with their 21 projects that landed them the #1 spot for top micropolitans. So I really get to have these great intimate conversations with economic developers across the U.S. and Central and South America to hear what's going on in their communities.
That's such a neat perspective to have because you do really have that global view on what's happening, and you really get to dive into some of these different communities, and hopefully that's helpful for your journey now at your educational journey for your MBA. That's so exciting that you're diving into economic development. What made you interested in that? Just kind of your work, or what led you down that path?
Yes, it's definitely my work. I'm on an advertising side for these communities, helping them get in front of our corporate audience that the publication goes out to. But I also help those communities with their individual publications that want to part with us, like this beautiful new North Dakota Economic Development Guide that just came out, print and digital versions. But I decided that I needed to have a deeper understanding of what these economic development directors and their teams are going through on a day-to-day basis, and really take a deeper dive into not just what a win looks like of landing a big project, but what the details that go into the site visits and the analysis that goes on between different projects that are being pitched. And, those communities are getting interviewed just as much as they're interviewing other companies to come in there, because you need the right. It's not just about landing any big project. It's about landing the right project that's going to bring that long-term value to your community and the residents that are there. So I just wanted to have a better understanding. So I dove right into school.
Oh, I love that. I love that you're taking that initiative to learn more, to dive into it a little bit more. And you're so right. Like the site selection and that whole process, it's all about relationships, and it's all about finding the right fit. And so that's kind of what we're all doing here at this conference and at similar conferences. We're trying to build those relationships, build those partnerships, and build that trust so that we know that we're going to be a good partner as we work together on projects. So you're so right on that. Now, from your work, from now your education, what trends are you seeing right now when it comes to how communities are positioning themselves for growth?
One of the things that I have noticed that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned today was there used to be this big saying of like, if you build it, they will come. And I don't feel like that is the trend as much now as it used to be. It's more about getting to know the company and building that relationship that you're talking about to find out what exactly their needs are. And that's more to also not just for the benefit of your relationship with them, but also to streamline their production process and the project process of getting them in. So the trend that I'm seeing is that there's a lot more intentionality in helping a company find the right fit within your community. And maybe that includes getting land. Maybe that means purchasing land and starting from scratch and not necessarily putting them into a building or like a mega site that's there. And I know that's a big difference between the two, but that I think that's the biggest thing that I have seen recently. Now I'm not an expert on that, but through my conversations through clients and conferences like these, that is the trend that I've seen.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I very much value your perspective because you get to have these conversations and because you work closely with the communities and with all of the players at the table. So thank you for sharing that. One last question for you. Now, This is an exciting one because North Dakota is recognized in the Governor's Cup this year. So we had a lot of wins across the state. Obviously, we were very excited about Williston being the top micro, but I mean, we had wins all across the state for projects coming to North Dakota. So what stands out to you about North Dakota's approach to economic development?
You guys did have a lot of big wins this
Mhm.
year. Not only did Williston get the top micropolitan spot out of over 500 micros in the US, and North Dakota won the Governor's Cup Award for total projects based on per capita, but you also had North Dakota was also in the top 10 states for the most micropolitans that ranked in the top 100, which is also a huge feat. And I think that speaks a lot to the state and the localities' ease of working, like the relationships that you have and how you build those, but also the ease of working in the state of North Dakota. It's a very business friendly state. I think you guys have been actually ranked as the top business friendly state in other, among many accolades that you've accumulated. And I think that speaks volumes not only to doing business there, but the stature of the people that you're doing business with as well.
Yeah, we talk a lot about North Dakota nice, but it's so much more than that. Like we're hardworking, we're dedicated, and we have tried really hard to make sure that it is a business friendly state. And it's been so great to see not only that we've been recognized by publications, but also by the businesses that have located in North Dakota. So thank you so much for the work that you do for recognizing not just our state, not just our community, but those across the state and the world. So we really appreciate you, the work that you do, but also taking the time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Margaret. I'm so pleased to introduce my guest, Ann Rybka. She is the director at Atlas Insight. Now, that is a site selection firm, but so much more. So, Ann, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. So we have a pretty diverse audience. So for anybody who's listening who does not know what site selectors do, can you kind of set that stage and tell us your background and how you came to be in this line of work?
Sure. So I think site selection is really trying to help our corporate clients find that perfect intersection of location, cost, and workforce. Atlas Insight is a independent boutique consulting firm. We focus only on two things, which is site selection and incentive consulting. So I already sort of described what site selection was, but on the incentive side, once a company has gone through the site selection process with us and narrowed down to a short list of finalist sites, we help procure and identify government incentive opportunities that will help them offset their immediate ramp up costs and then ongoing operational costs as well.
And that work is so important. The corporate matchmaking that you had mentioned. So it's making sure that there is that relationship building between a company and between the location. And from my line of work, I'm very grateful for you and the work that you do and kind of the hand holding that you're able to offer on both sides to make sure that it's a fit, to make sure that it's going to be a successful project and that there's going to be a great partnership there.
Absolutely.
So from your perspective, what are companies looking for today when they're evaluating communities for investment?
They are looking for consistency and reliability. I think one of the biggest goals of working with a consultant, going through a very data-driven site selection process is reducing risk. And projects have become so complex. I think just the investments that are required into automation, into facilities, modernizing manufacturing facilities, for example, those investments have just gotten so large. So these are very high stakes, complex decisions. And so part of our role is making sure that companies just have the best information and the best data available so that they can make a good location decision that's going to be a very good long-term fit for them. But throughout the process, you're always looking at reducing risk. And that may be through the site selection process, maybe, on the community selection side, to just ensure that they are truly making a 25, 30-year decision.
these projects are, I mean, they're billions of dollars. We have several that are in Williston area that are billions of dollars. And I mean, this is not for the faint of heart. Like, you have to make sure that you have your ducks in the row, you have the right data, and you are making the right decision for this project.
Yes, it is hard for me to wrap my head around the scale of investments. I think these days, when I first started my career 20 years ago, we would see a 50 or $100 million project and think, wow, these just don't come around very often. And those projects are very much still, even today, the backbone of communities. But project investments are just ballooning. I think it's obviously a little bit due to inflation, obviously, but I also think it's because of the types of technology that particularly manufacturers have to invest in order to stay competitive.
So that increase in that investment, is that what you're seeing across foreign direct investment as well, or what kind of trends are you seeing in the FDI space?
Yes, I think that's a global phenomenon. A lot of the projects that we're seeing coming from FDI are very high value, high technology, advanced manufacturing type projects. And so those investments into the equipment and the technology, and also just into a facility that can support that type of operation from an infrastructure and utility standpoint, those make the capital investments that we're seeing, I think, across the board, just very, very high.
Yeah, that's one thing that I never thought that I would be talking about before I was in economic development, talking about utilities and water and sewer and, like the things that you don't think about on a day-to-day basis as a regular citizen, like the things that we really have to think about and make sure that we are positioned for as the community. And of course, you're looking for with the projects. So how can communities like Williston position themselves more effectively when it comes to attracting site selectors and some of these new businesses?
Yes, I do not envy your position, Hannah. I've just seen year after year the role of economic development in community building and obviously business attraction, and just making sure that the community is a great place to live and work. But your role has just expanded so much. Like you said, I bet you never thought you would become a utility expert, an infrastructure expert, understanding road systems, logistics, HR practices. A lot of companies who are new to site selection, who have never gone through the process, they just need a lot of hand-holding. And so, yes, we appreciate you. Local economic developers are our greatest partners and our greatest assets as site selectors. So it's always a joy to be sitting with one. What can you do to continue to attract business and make your community attractive? Obviously, it's going to be all the things. I think one of the things that states and communities continuously need to focus on is not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? So figure out the backbone of your community, talk to your stakeholders, talk to your residents, understand what you do really, really well, and then just try to expand on that. And I think that vibrancy, I think that passion for your community will come through if you're concentrating on things that you already know and you're already very, very good at.
Yeah, and especially when I can imagine these companies are probably looking at a sea of data. Like, there's got to be something that sets your community apart, that is the intangible that goes along with your data sets. And so that's, for me anyway, I think where the relationships really come in and where you really come in to help foster those. So thank you for the kind words about economic developers. I really appreciate the partnership that we're able to have with you and people in your position. So great partnership. Let's keep it going. And just thank you so much for the work that you do and for joining me today on the podcast. Is there anything else that you would want to share with our listeners before we say goodbye?
No, I am from Minnesota, so I am from the Midwest, and have family that lives in North Dakota. So I I was excited to be here with you today. I just want to thank you so much for your time. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We are joined by yet another wonderful guest. So today I have Susan Donkers with me. She is the COO of Strata Platforms. Now, that's a parent company behind LOIS. That's a site readiness platform that the North Dakota Department of Commerce has helped deploy across the state to help showcase available sites and buildings in all of our communities. So with that, Susan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're excited to learn a little bit more about you. So can you share with our listeners just a little bit more about your background and the work that you're doing with Strata Platforms?
Absolutely. Well, first, I'm from a small town in Indiana named Warsaw, Indiana. So I know what it's like to be from a rural community with cows and corn in my backyard. And I actually began my career here in Washington, D.C. So being here at the SelectUSA Investment Summit is a little bit like coming home for me. I lived here for 15 years and I worked in commercial real estate development and also military construction. So the military obviously was a global opportunity, and that's where I got my first global experiences. And then I moved to Greenville, South Carolina, which is a site selection hub. So I spent 10 years doing manufacturing and industrial site selection. So my background is really across engineering, construction, and real estate. But it really kind of comes back to my time growing up in Warsaw, Indiana. My mom was a real estate broker. So even though I've had all these different global experiences, I'm kind of realizing as I get older that I'm, basically my mother's daughter, just enamored with real estate.
Well, I love that. So you've kind of seen the ins and the outs of all of the different perspectives here. So how has that shaped your journey then with Strata and what you've been able to do with that company?
Yes, at Strata Platforms, you mentioned that we're a parent company of LOIS, and we're a parent company of the Lasso software, location1.com, and then another program called Site Shepherd. So really what Strata Platforms does is we respect the time of those people doing deals. And so what I mean by that is economic developers are just constantly under stress and pressure and unrealistic timelines and immediate deadlines and corporate prospects and stakeholder demand. It's unrelenting, right? So what we're doing at Strata Platforms is trying to take as much of that burden off of economic developers as possible by giving them their time back. Meaning in the LOIS software, we're adding additional data layers and workforce data and business employer data so that there's more data at the fingertips of an economic developer. And then on the Lasso side, we're providing features like total data recall so that if you've entered your data once, you never have to enter it again. So these seem like small features, but what we're really trying to focus on is just giving time back to the practitioners. On the site selection side, similar, right? So if you're a site selector, you might look at 50 properties from 10 states times 500 data points per property. That's 25,000 data points, and your client wants an answer now. So we're constantly bringing new features to the site selector to also respect their time and give them their time back. So it's been a lot of fun to work at Strata Platforms and listening to the feedback of our clients and then trying to act on that as fast as we can.
Well, thank you for putting all of the work into all of that, because I can say that since the Department of Commerce has brought LOIS to all of us, given us that opportunity to be on the platform, our office has really taken a deep dive into the platform, into seeing how it can work for us. And we do have a link live now on our website with some available sites. And, that's something that we've been talking about since I started in this role, is that we've got to have that data available at the ready so that we don't have to spend all of the time then talking about all of those sites. We can just say, here's all of the sites, but let me tell you about what makes Williston special.
Yeah, there's kind of a joke in the site selection consulting industry that, or it's just kind of maybe an adage of, if you have no sites, there's nothing for a site selector to select. But as you know, that's just really the tip of the iceberg. The local knowledge, just like what Ann was talking about, is really what it closes the deal. There is nothing that can ever replace the local knowledge that community members have. ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude, none of these AI tools are ever going to replace the local knowledge, the local employers, the local workforce, and just the local pride in what a community can deliver. And so the way we talk at Strata is, let us do kind of the grunt work, the data manipulation, the automation, so that economic developers and community stakeholders can focus on what they do well, which is the community relationship side, and really like the strength finding side, right? From that book, The Strength Finders.
Yep. I have read that book and done that process, and I love that call out. But yeah, we've been really grateful for the platform for several reasons. Like I just mentioned, it's time is money, right? And so you taking that out of the equation and letting us do a little bit more of the work that we need to be doing, and having the conversations we need to be having, but also it's helped us build more relationships with the landowners and with the brokers that are in our communities, because we're saying, hey, we have this tool and we want to work with you, and we really want to put your sites out there and have them available. So we've been really appreciative of the platform and I will say some of them have been really appreciative too, because of the recall that you mentioned. So you put it in once and then you're done. So it really helps them as well, that I've noticed that.
Well, and then something else I'll share, again, to respect the time of the people in communities, is if your audience is familiar with Zillow for real estate, for residential real estate, that's a vision and an aspirational goal of Strata Platforms, is to be the Zillow for economic development properties. So for example, every single property that's entered into LOIS is also co-listed on location1.com. So location1.com spans across North America, and there's people from over 80 countries that search it. So one of the things I'm doing here at SelectUSA is meeting with our global partners that live in Europe and Asia, that help companies overseas kind of understand what it's like to do business in the United States. And it's free for all of those companies to search location1.com. So our goal is to really increase the likelihood that communities in North Dakota are found. And we're doing that with that co-listing process.
Yeah, we very much appreciate that, because we know that North Dakota doesn't typically tell their story. We're a little bit too humble. And so being able to have these types of technologies and tools that put that out there, and force us to put ourselves out there and to tell those stories, that certainly helps us as economic developers, for our communities, help us help you. Let's work together and let's get this out in front of the people that are looking for it. So we're, like I said, just so appreciative of what you've been able to bring to the table.
Well, you're definitely being noticed at this event. I mean, the trade show downstairs on the main floor, you have President Teddy Roosevelt walking around, and I don't think there's any corporate business investor globally that has not noticed North Dakota at this event.
Well, good. Let's keep that momentum, right? So, well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we wrap this up?
I would love to share that if any of your listeners or anyone in any community, has feedback or recommendations for us, we don't want any of our clients to suffer in silence, and we're really motivated to connect communities with that corporate business investment. So we would just love the feedback, and we're really well known for acting on our clients' recommendations.
And I can attest, the gal in our office has been working with your team. They've been working really collaboratively, talking through all of the very nitty gritty of technology like this that I could never speak that language. So I'm so grateful that they do. But the response has been excellent and the teamwork has been excellent. So
Thank you.
yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate you, your work, your time, and I hope you have a great show.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. And before we wrap up, I would like to welcome back our favorite Rough Rider, Mr. President. If you were to leave communities and leaders with one message, drawing from Theodore Roosevelt's perspective, what would it be?
Keep your eyes on the stars and your feet planted firmly on the ground. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. For yourselves, your families, for Williston, for North Dakota and our mutual republic. Do what you can with what you have where you are. Bully for Williston Works Podcast.